This video is for educational and entertainment purposes only. Welcome back to Real Killers. If it's your first time here, please consider subscribing and don't forget to hit that like button. Thanks. Buckle up, we're heading to Watts Island. Did Nichol Kessinger have any involvement in the murders of Chris's wife and kids, 34-year-old Shanann Watts, 4-year-old Bella, 3-year-old Cece, and Nico, who never even got a chance to open his eyes, leaving law enforcement, his community, and the world in mourning? It's been 5 years, but still feels as if this happened yesterday. As Chris Watts was confessing, Nichol Kessinger was speaking to investigators a few miles away, with her opportunity to be 100% truthful. Instead, she decided to be misleading, and in some of her statements, she just outright lied, conveniently forgetting details and withholding information. Nichol Kessinger's police interviews and her cell phone records are very telling. Many have suspected for years that she may have had some level of involvement in the murders, and for good reason. What I find interesting is that Shanann's family say they have a lot of detail about the case, details that were never made public, and certain details about Nichol as well, and still believe that Chris Watts acted alone. So then why did Nichol Kessinger feel the need to lie? This video is just my own point of view and opinions. There's just so many events that Kessinger lied about. If you have nothing to worry about or no involvement, why lie? I want to throw some quick shame on all you victim blamers. How dare you? A pregnant mother and her babies were murdered. Shanann was loving and caring, and even if she wasn't, she nor those babies deserved that. Chris would have never seen a court date had he done something like this to mine. CBI agent Tammy Lee gets a call from Anadarko security manager Tony Husky to inform her of a contract worker named Nichol Kessinger who was in a relationship with Chris Watts. 4 hours later, Nichol Kessinger was contacting authorities to reveal herself so that she can get ahead of the investigation. She knew it was a matter of time before they reached out to her, and she jumped out in front of that. You'd think that somewhere in those 6 meetings she attended with FBI and CBI, they would have interrogated her as a suspect at least once, just to see if she'd crack. They might have got a confession out of her. Instead, they protected her, talked to her as a witness and a victim before fully vetting her. Some think Nichol got special treatment because of who her father is. Word on the street is he is a Freemason. Could be true, I can't verify anything on this. So I'm leaning towards conspiracy theory on whether or not he is a Freemason.
So I just want to know how you met him, where you met him, how long you guys were dating, and those kind of things initially.
Okay. I think I met him sometime in June, probably early June. It might have been May. It was just talking at work. It was pretty casual. And he didn't have a wedding ring on it.
Kessinger's phone pinged in Frederick, Colorado at 6:16 a.m. the morning of the murders. Highlighted in yellow in Nichol Kessinger's Verizon call log, it's a 1-minute call to someone in Milwaukee, roughly when Chris Watts was driving at Survey 319 with his family in the rear car seat behind him. We know this to be her friend Jim's phone number, the other man in her life with a key to her apartment. And just above that call in blue at 9:28 p.m., there was a call she received 111 minutes, and that was from Chris Watts. Both Chris and Nichol were asked about that 111-minute conversation. They both gave similar answers and stated that the topic of conversations were random and not relevant. That just sounds rehearsed. Records also revealed that authorities who examined Kessinger's phone found hours worth of searches. And on July 24th, Kessinger Google searched the phrase, "Man I'm having an affair with says he will leave his wife." And on August 8th, Kessinger searched Google on topics relating to marrying your mistress. And after the murders, a search using the phrase, "Can cops trace text messages?" Interesting. Look, people have affairs. Some folks cheat, both husbands and wives do it. It's a hard pill to swallow, but it happens. Usually what happens after something like this, because eventually your wife or husband will find out. A couple would either seek marriage counseling or just say, "Nope, I want a divorce." What we don't do is kill our family over some girl we barely know. And if a man does do something as heinous, A mistress should be devastated and want to help investigators, not delete, mislead, and withhold information. And Nichol Kessinger is a grown woman. Why does she bring her father, Dwayne Kessinger, with?
But
It's so sad, and she's pregnant.
And you know, on our end, we didn't.
They're so cute. They're so little. Like, why? Why? How? I don't even understand how you could like bring yourself to do that to somebody who's like that big.
Take a minute. Do you want to step out for a minute?
Well, she was scared, but I guess the real question is, what exactly did you do? If all you're guilty of is pursuing and sleeping with a married man, so you tell police the truth from start to finish by coming forward immediately, not after you get wind that management has contacted investigators about the affair, then spend the next 4 hours trying to delete and hide information before revealing yourself. Yeah, it's a little embarrassing, but unfortunately these things happen. The public would have frowned on you for like 10 minutes and forgotten your name. But there's more to this, and you panicked. If I had absolutely nothing to hide or worry about, not sure I would want to drag my father, or anyone else for that matter, into this. All this information is probably old news to a lot of you, but I just landed on Watts Island, so I got a lot of catching up to do. When Kessinger revealed her identity to the media in an interview with the Denver Post after Watts pleaded guilty to killing his wife of nearly 6 years, Kessinger said she barely knew him and we had just met. She said the two co-workers had begun a physical relationship, but we were taking it slow and didn't discuss long-term plans. She added that Watts told her that he was in the process of finalizing his divorce, and then later told her that the divorce was completed.
You're not being interrogated as a criminal suspect. We're here to understand your relationship with Chris and what you know about Chris and his family, and events relating to Chris Watts. And do you know him as Chris or Christopher?
Either one.
Okay. So the phone number that you reached him on, can you tell me what that number was?
I think I deleted that out of my phone too. I just cut him out of my life.
On August 19th, only 4 days after Watts was arrested, Kessinger Google searched Amber Fry, asking about her net worth, book deals, and if she'd be shamed publicly. I'm sure you've heard of Amber Fry, and if you haven't, Amber was the mistress of another infamous killer by the name of Scott Peterson, who murdered his wife Lacey and their unborn child back in 2002, which was another absolutely heartbreaking case. Amber Fry didn't have to go under witness protection. She had nothing to hide. Because unlike Amber, Nichol lied. Amber Fry came out before police even knew of her, and Amber Fry was truthful about not knowing he was married. Sorry, Nichol, you're in a whole different class. Nichol, what are you trying to hide? Look, I obviously don't know, none of us know, if she was actually there committing the act. All these contradictions do not make her look good at all. She tells police they had no plans for the future, but she's looking at wedding dresses. She obviously had a major influence on Chris and did see some future in their relationship. She suggested he pawn Shanann's wedding ring while his family was missing. That really says a lot about someone's intentions. Let's face it, she knew Chris Watts was married. For a long time, she knew. She accepted her role as his mistress. The Father's Day post by Shanann and the girls showing their appreciation honoring Chris was enough proof for me that Kessinger knew. But then there's the Google search dating all the way back to January of 2018, when, according to Kessinger, she didn't know Shanann's name until way after they started dating. She is creepy. That's some pretty scary shit when you think about it. Modern day fatal attraction. I don't know about you, but if I'm giving you a key to my home, we're a little more than just friends. Nichol claims Chris knew about Jim and was not insecure or jealous at all about him. If I was a betting man, I'd bet Nichol was lying about that and used Jim from time to time. You have a wife, I have a friend. Every time Chris had to go back home to his wife, she hated it. And she needed Jim around. The same way she was threatened by Shanann, she needed Chris to feel that too. To pressure Chris into following through with his plans to divorce Shanann. The evidence is right here in front of us. She wanted Shanann's life, and with Chris, the house, the kids. Hell, she'd been stalking this family for at least 6 months, but probably way longer. She went to extremes to hide information from police, reaching out to her friends, asking them to delete messages before deleting all of her messages. That should have alarmed detectives. She went and broke her damn SIM card. The lengths she took to hide and mislead police during the investigation is the same measures and lengths she took to make Chris do all the things to rid himself of his family. She was the mastermind behind giving Shanann Watts OxyContin in hopes for her to miscarry, and telling Chris that she wanted to give him his first son. She seemed cold and callous. Other than the act that she pulled, zero empathy and accountability. I just can't see her as a victim at all. Was she there that night? I don't know. There's video out there, but I couldn't 100% make that out. Very possible. If that surveillance cam footage was as clear as day, none of us are having this conversation right now. I'm sure CBI would have handled that swiftly. The pressure was on. Chris had to make a decision. The longer Chris waited, the more Kessinger manipulated him. So Chris decided to go to North Carolina because Nicole Kessinger told him to work on his marriage because she wanted him to be the best dad he could be to those beautiful girls. And she takes credit for that, wanting to create space for him, telling him to work on his marriage. But then seconds later tells investigators that they were still seeing each other frequently, and it was all Chris, stating he was into me more than I was into him. She takes zero accountability for anything, unless it's to tell investigators that it was because of her that Chris tried to fix things with his wife. But you're also the reason for a lot of other things happening, Nichol. This wasn't Chris's first rodeo. It's my understanding that he has cheated on his wife before. At some point, his then mistress knew to call it for what it was and walked away. But not you. You wanted more. You just couldn't let go. Nicole's excuses for all of her poor decisions are weak. I understand everyone's frustrations with police or investigators handling the case. We have to remember that there was nothing they could do with what they have. Suspicion is not going to cut it in a court of law. Police had to be very careful how they handled things. In reality, Nichol didn't even have to talk to police. She could have lawyered up and exercised her right to remain silent. I know. I sound like an NK sympathizer. However, Nichol had an arrest record. I think at the very least they had to have ran her name. Turns out NK has a couple of underage drinking arrests. And a recent video also suggested she was a violent offender as a juvenile. The information is sealed, can't be verified because she was a juvenile, but I can believe that. So many people have been affected by this case that YouTubers actually showed up at the Frederick Police Department to question why more hasn't been done about NK. And we're told that once Chris confessed, the investigation stopped. I guess it kind of makes sense. He didn't implicate anyone. Nicole's deceptive behavior didn't mean much to detectives. They already did their job as far as they were concerned. At that moment in time, all investigators wanted to do is give the Rusiks closure. Not sure there ever will be after something so tragic. At the very least, help them begin that healing process. couldn't imagine going through this. I have a sister who's the same age Shanann was when she passed, with 3 kids about the same age as Cece and Bella, and a newborn. So this case hits home for many of us. Nichol had no consideration for the Watts family. It's low down enough to get with a married man. She knew he was married. She justifies her willingness to be in a relationship with Chris by blaming him for lying about a divorce that she pressured him to get. Shanann was doing what everyday moms do. Those girls were her life. Chris was her life. She would have done anything to get him back. She wasn't going to give up on their marriage because she loved that monster. It was too late. By the time she realized something was off, Chris had already made up his mind. It's so sad because had she thought for 1 millisecond that Chris had it in him to hurt those girls, she would have fled back home or never came back with him in the first place. I can't even imagine what was going through her head in those final moments. As for Nichol, she doesn't exist anymore. New identity and location. I wouldn't be surprised if she was still in Colorado. Highly unlikely though, she could be anywhere. If I were her, I'd go to Alaska, way in the mountains, and far away from people. Someone will recognize her one day. The world still wants answers, Nichol. If we are all wrong about you and our theories, prove it. Prove us wrong and explain yourself. It'll be a long time before you're able to live with yourself for the choices you've made. Ultimately, I think NK may be guilty of conspiring to terminate Shanann's pregnancy and obstructing justice. Did she actually kill Shanann? Personality and all the research tells me it's very possible that she could have been there. But don't be mistaken. Chris is exactly where he belongs. Other than that, there just isn't much more to go on. There have been many conspiracy theories about the case, talk of crystals under the beds, inmates getting released and claiming Chris confessed NK involvement. There has been talks about Chris being drugged by Nichol, black magic and spells, Freemason involvement, and the Ruziks having mob ties, so much more. This has gotten out of control, and after this video, I am vacating Watts Island. I fell through the rabbit hole, and it's easy to get swallowed up by all the information and rumors out there. Chris Watts is a weak man. He took out his whole family for a nut job. She wanted Chris to leave his wife for her. She may have said some horrible things in text and didn't want anyone to see it. Somewhere along the line, things got out of control,